Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems. Hey, I'm Tom Gozzi. This week on Hot and Cold, we're on our project kitchen. We're getting ready for kitchen cabinets. And the first thing you got to do is start at the foundation and work your way up, and that's exactly what you're doing, and you'll see what we're doing, and you'll see what we're doing if you stay right there. Don't go nowhere. So what we have to do before we do anything else is we have to do underlayment on the tile floor. We're doing the tile floor and we're putting down underlayment, and we have a couple of issues here that are pretty significant. We have got vinyl flooring. It's what we call resilient vinyl flooring because it has a little bit of give to it, not very much. It's pretty hard, but it's resilient in the overall scheme of things. We cannot take tile and stick it directly to the vinyl floor. So we have to take up the vinyl floor, or if you're like me, you don't want to take up the vinyl floor. No, because it's hard work. It takes a lot of time, and I don't have that kind of energy anymore. So what we're going to do is cover it up, and we're going to cover it with this product called Hardy Backer. It's made by James Hardy Company, the same people that made that cement siding that we have on a lot of our buildings. This is a 1/4-inch cement board. It's cement with, I think, a little bit of cellulose fiber. There's no paper in it. It doesn't mind getting wet. And what we're going to do, a couple of issues with vinyl, you can't stick anything to it easily. So we certainly cannot use thin set mortar to stick tile to the vinyl. But we can take Hardy Backer and screw that down on top of it, and we can make a nice substrate just by using mechanical fasteners. We can make a nice substrate to put the thin set on, which then allows us to put the tile on. So the Hardy Backer, now we've got a couple of issues here. We're right at the edge. The cabinets, this is the wall the cabinets are going to be on. They're going to come out about 21 inches. There's a toe space. They actually come out 24 inches, but there's a little bit of a toe space. So we've got to come in a bit. And we have to get underneath the cabinet, but where the refrigerator is and where the stove is, from this line to this line is where the stove is going to be. So we've got to build up. There's a step here where the old cabinets were because the floor was a little bit built up. And coincidentally, conveniently, miraculously, it's a 1/4-inch. So I could put a 1/4-inch piece of Hardy Backer down. I have to slide it over this way just a dite. So we're over to the edge where we're supposed to be. Matter of fact, I got to chew that up a little bit. You can cut it with a knife, but I'm using where the wire is, I'm just using a nipper, and I'm going to slide that over so we intersect with that line, and we do. We just set that down. That's all. That's just a loose piece. And hidden back here, I have another piece of Hardy Backer that I pre-cut. Again, I just nipped a hole in it, and that's going to butt up against here like so. I'm going to bring that out like so. And that lays flat. And I conveniently have screws and a screw gun. Now, it's marked where we screw it down, and I don't know how well we can see that with the light, but there's little indentations here. See the little indentation? There's one there, there's a round one here. So at the edge we've got this sort of oval type thing, and we just screw down in, and we go ahead. We get two. It's kind of locked in. It's not going to move around. This was the previous sheet. The stove was in the way. I just moved it out of the way, so we're going to screw that down. And you can see every 8 inches we've got screws going in. And the pattern is pretty much preordained, laid out for me, where the screws have to go. And this is recessed ever so slightly, so it will allow the screw to not stick up and be in the way of the thin set or the tile when we're putting it down. Now, the Hardy Company makes a special screw for anchoring this stuff, and they're quite expensive. And if you go every 8 inches on these sheets, we've got a lot of screws anchoring the thing to the floor, and we want that because we don't want any kind of movement. When you're doing tile, you don't want anything moving anywhere anyhow, because if it does, you're, as they say, kind of screwed. And that's a pretty funny joke. Anyway, we want to make sure that we don't have any popping of the tile, and the tile needing this substrate being, the substrate has to be solid, so we don't want to be cheap on the screws. But if the screws are expensive, if you're using the screws they suggest, you spend a lot of extra money. So I find that just a standard, this is a standard, I guess what you call a deck screw with a bugle head. The top just kind of curves out like a bugle. And I find that countersinks very well. And we just go ahead and we put all the screws in. And then this will be ready to do some tiling. Oh, I just broke that screw. And I'm going to pull that out because I don't trust it. The screw gun does have a ratchet in it, and we don't want that to happen where that would be loose and pop up into the area here. So we'll throw that over there. I'm going to put another one right alongside this. There we go. And that's what we do. We put screws every 8 inches, and this is quite solid. Now over here you can see there's some bounce. See how that's going up and down? That's why we screw it every 8 inches, because we absolutely, positively have to have these fasteners, because anybody will tell you, you don't, that one just broke too. I'm going to stop screwing around because I'm getting into trouble here. We absolutely, positively do not want a tile floor to move. When people are walking on it, when things get dropped or bounced, the floor has to be very stable. And it's a pretty stable floor. I'm going to go down the basement and just double check before we finish the floor to make sure everything is solid. But if there's any movement in this underlayment at all because of any of the things that could happen, we're going to be in big trouble. So those screws every 8 inches are extremely critical. And if you need to, they make this in a 1/2 inch thick material. It's going to be even beefier. I prefer this to the standard cement board we used when we did the bathroom because it's much easier to cut. It doesn't seem to have the abrasiveness that a cement board has. It's still abrasive, but not as bad, so it's easy to cut. I just score it with a knife, and let me show you. I've got to cut a piece to go right here, okay? And I'm going to do it this way. That's just what I did, isn't it? Let's go here. All right, so we know, because the lines are kind of a guide, you can see I can score it rather crudely. It's kind of like sheetrock, a little bit. And we just score it, and then we pop it, and you can see it kind of pulls a bit, and it doesn't break cleanly unless you score it deeper or you cut it. But it's adequate because what we're doing here is just like that. That'll work. Now we don't have the screw indentations here, but we'll make our own. Pick our own spot, and that will work fine. Now, the little bit of opening here is not a big deal. I'll fill that with thin set when I go ahead and do the tiling here. We're going to come in this far. The edge of the cabinet is about here. What we're going to do is take partial pieces of tile. We're going to cut it to come in to about this edge, so we have the tile sticking underneath the cabinet a little bit. So we set the cabinet on it, and we don't care. This edge is not straight here. See how this goes in and out with the underlayment? The tile can do the same thing. It just needs to stick in beyond the edge of the cabinet a little bit. And I don't have to get don't have to be fancy at all. Nothing has to be fitted properly. It just has to be in far enough that when the cabinet's on top, you don't see that edge. That's what we like about these projects. We plan them out and we make it a simple way to do this minimal cutting, and what cutting we do have to do, we don't have to be real artistic about, because I'm not an artistic person. You knew that. And we got to take a break, speaking of artistry, and we'll be right back. I don't know what that means, but stay. We got tiling to do. Oh, tiling is fun. It really is. Stay with us. And next, I think we need to mix up some thin set mortar. Now, what I've got here is this stuff. It's a gray thin set, and we have to mix it with some water. I'm going to get a bucket and we'll put some water in it. We mix it up. I'll show you. We have tools for everything. So I've got a nice clean bucket here, and I'm not going to do a whole lot because I'm not going to do a lot today. But we want to at least look at it. And of course, this stuff is dusty, so you want to try not to breathe you should never try to breathe cement. It's not good for you. And what I do is I always mix it by the kitchen sink, because I take the bucket, I take the kitchen sprayer, and I spray all that dust down. Don't breathe it. It will settle on everything. And then I invested in one of these mixers, and my plug-in drill let go, so I'm using I found I can use my cordless rigid drill, and if I don't make this too thick, too deep that is, I can, you hit this and it does that. So we just position ourselves properly, 2 feet, this is the way I do it at least. There are professionals all over Eastern Maine laughing at me right now, but this is the way I do it. I'm holding the bucket with my feet. I just mix it up a little. Now that's still a little bit dry, so I always stay close enough to the sink. Wives all over the world are saying, yeah, that's what my husband would do. That's a very convenient way to do it. And I find it better to make small batches than to do big batches, just because it's easier to mix. But I'm going to put a little more in there. I think I'm all of a sudden becoming inspired now that we're doing a TV show. Let's put a little bit more thin set in there. If nothing else, we need the dust, right? If we're here, we've got the tools, we've got the thin set being mixed, we might as well make an impact on the whole project and get something done. It's kind of fun if you don't hold it with your feet. You spin the bucket around. You could buy the pre-mixed mortar, but this is a lot less expensive, and it's probably, for the cost of the pre-mixed mortar, you could buy this and own it forever and mix your own, because it only takes a few moments. And once I'm done, now you see how it's gloppy and it's on the mixer, I then just spin it above. So by centrifugal force, I force off all the loose stuff, and we take it off the drill. And then I will further clean that off when I'm ready. For now, I'm just going to set it there. We have to let that set for 10 minutes to slack. I don't know what slack means, but what it is a chemical reaction is taking place where the adhesive properties of the thin set are becoming such that it will work to bond everything together. So while that slacks, we'll slack off for a few moments, and through the magic of television come back, because it's not time for a break yet, is it? No, says Mr. Cameraman. So we'll slack off and we'll do the thing. Hey, that looks like some nice stuff. I made it myself. So what we got is a 1/4-inch trowel. And what I try to do is not get too far ahead of myself, because I want to keep track where the tiles are not 100% uniform. They're not like, you know, standard ceramic tile. I only do 1 or 2 at a time, so I can keep some kind of lineup on the grid work that's on the hardy backer, because that I have pretty much parallel with the walls. So there's a lot of natural variation in these tiles in terms of color also. So now that box there, that was the top piece. Look at the next one. Oh, that's the same color. Let's look at the next one. Be funny if they're all, okay, see, so we get a lot of this nice variation. I love this stuff. It really looks great. I'm really curious to see how it's going to stand up to normal wear and tear, but normal wear and tear will just make it look natural. That's what it'll be. We want to get a nice angle on the thing, so we have the mortar is sticking up, and we can get good contact with the bottom of the tile. The bottom of the tile is roughened up here. See, there's the top, relatively smooth. The bottom, by comparison, has a lot of edges to it. And what we do is I drop it into the thin set a little bit and work it down and try to get the edges as even as possible, even beating on it a little bit. When I stop, because I'm only doing limited areas, I will come with a knife and just clean this edge up, so I don't waste the material, and I don't have to scrape up dried thin set that when I come back the next day. And what I try to do is as I said earlier, one area, wait 24 hours, come back and do the next area. Again, trying to anticipate the traffic pattern. And if you're doing this in your home, if you can't keep everybody out of the room you're doing, in this case the kitchen, we can't keep everybody out of the kitchen, although like I say, it's a good reason to go out to eat. We're going to have to make some accommodation. It's going to take longer to do the project. But speaking of that, we've got to take a break here, so you can run to the kitchen if you need to, or whatever other room in the house. I'll keep putting down tile, and when we come back, we'll see where we're at. Hey, we're back, and I'm continuing to go plug along here. And as I said, there's a lot of natural variation in these tiles, and this one has a lot of interesting elevation, but it's a little thin on this one edge. See, it's relatively thick over here, and that's almost half the thickness on that end. So I'm going to put that off to the side, although it really looks cool. It's got a lot of nice detail, and in the light it really varies. And I'm going to go with another one that's a little more, this is a little thick on this edge, but I think we can maybe make that work. We set it there. And there's one other thing that I look for that I try to avoid. Where this is a sedimentary rock, we have a lot of layers here. And you can see over here, the layers there's a gap there a little bit, and if I put that putty knife in there, I could probably pry that apart and make a lot of thin tile, which I don't want. When I get to a tile like this, I can actually squeeze that together a little bit. I'm not going to put this on the floor in a traffic area. I might use that at the edge underneath the cabinet where the cabinet's going to sit down, because I think if there's a lot of movement on it, it's going to flake off. We want something like this that looks nice and solid. Now, this was not horribly expensive tile, so I'm willing to make that accommodation. I guess if I spent a lot of money on it, I wouldn't. I might be a little more upset. But where it was actually a special order tile that somebody ordered a bunch of extra and didn't take it all. So I bought it as sort of leftover clearance material. If I spent a lot of money on it, I probably wouldn't like that fact that I have to deal with all the weirdness, but I think that's what you get when you deal with a lot of natural products. I don't have a lot of experience dealing with natural stone. I usually work with ceramic tile, and that's pretty uniform stuff. But you know, it is what it is, right? That one looks decent. Oh, this is cool looking stuff, I tell you. I love the look. It's going to be a nice floor when it's done. And I have an issue. I think it's better to make a lot of small batches of thin set than make a big batch, because every time I say, well, you know, I've got a lot to do, and I make a big batch of this, I always wind up with leftover. I can't go any further, and I've got to waste whatever I've made. I think this 50-pound bag ran something like, I don't know, $7 or $8, which is not a lot of money. But I hate to waste it, so I'd rather mix it up. And with the power tools, it's pretty easy to do. And we just keep plugging away. There's one that's a little bit cockeyed in terms of the size. It's about 1/16 of an inch larger on one edge, so I have to struggle with this stuff. And we just keep going. We're not going to go too much further here today, because we'll be out of time soon. So we want to just kind of square it off. Although I find it very therapeutic. If your knees don't give out and you're doing this kind of project, it's good therapy, laying tile. And you notice I'm doing it minus knee pads. And my bony knees remind me of that at the end of the day. And now like where this tile here, look at this corner here. This is 1/16 of an inch larger on this edge. So we have to try to keep the line straight that goes down this way and kind of average out our spacing. It's a little tricky, but that don't look too horrible. And when we get, as I say, when we get the grout in there, it won't be visible. And it's a little challenging and a little frustrating, but I think when the grout is in, we're okay. Now, here I've done an area, and if you walked in the door, would you know where to walk? Well, you can see at the edge where the thin set is wet, but in 20 minutes that thin set's going to look dry at the edge. And if you step on that tile, it's going to go and squish. So what I do is I take the wrapping, the cardboard that was on the boxes, and it naturally falls apart because this tile is heavy, and beats it up. And I just outline the area I've done, so people know to walk around anywhere where Tom leaves garbage on the floor, which isn't always that clear. But if we do this, we know this area here we should not walk on for 24 hours. I'm going to do a little bit more, but that's the deal. And get my little putty knife. And I'm not going to go any further here today on this edge, but I'll clean up my edge like so and make that look presentable. Now, when the time comes in another week or so, we will have all this done, and we will get the grout out and pick, as I say, a dark color. We use pretty dark color in the bathroom, and we'll grout it. A lot of trick, you know, where this is a natural stone, it is very porous. This is very porous material, and we have to do the grout. Normally, when you grout a tile, you try to get it on the joint, and then you wipe it across, and it gets all over everything. Where this is so rough and so extremely porous, we have to do it really fast because it tends to dry. It sucks the water out of the grout, and it tends to dry. And if you're not thorough in cleaning it, you've got grout on the surface, and it's a long time getting it off. So we want to be particularly meticulous about that when the time comes. I always felt that one of those pastry chef bags where they put pipe out the icing would be perfect for doing this, but we'll do it, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of it on tape. I think we'll, even if we do the grout, we'll save a little bit for next week so you can see some of it being done, because it is a joyous experience. This is relaxing. The grout I don't find quite as relaxing because you're endlessly going over, cleaning, trying to make sure that we get it clean. You're changing water a lot. Right now I just mix mortar as I need it, and we do our thing, and we're all set. So anyway, that's what we got. We got tile going down on the floor. which when this is done, we don't have to grout it before the cabinets come, but we got to get this in before the cabinets arrive and have it cure so we're not beating it up as we're walking around on it and loosening them up. And this will be well cured. The longer mortar sits, the stronger it gets. It's going to be nice and strong by the time the cabinets arrive here. And I'll get all the little intricacies. I've avoided, there's not much cutting on these edges. There will be some. There won't be much over here because we're going to get underneath the cabinets, just let it stick underneath the cabinet. There'll be some cutting though. We're going to save that all for one day. And you see me use the tile saw. It's the same routine. But if we're still doing some next week, you get to see some of that. But we are out of time. The time goes very quickly when we're having fun with you folks. We'll see you next week. If you have any questions, call us on the radio. We'd be glad to talk to you about what I don't know about tiling, which is more than I know about tiling. But I do know this is a fun project that you can do yourself and save yourself a lot of money. And with a little bit of patience and a little bit of guidance, you can do a great job. See you next week. Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.